Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking at something really counterintuitive. A major flood event back in late 2025, hitting places like Content and Williamsfield in Manchester Parish, Jamaica. But here's the twist. The water didn't come from a river bursting its banks or just, heavy rain pooling up. The scientific analysis actually concluded, and get this, that the water came up because, essentially, the ground rose.
Sounds completely backward, doesn't
And
it?
it really does. And we're going to be unpacking the science behind this today using a very detailed resilience framework. It comes from the LoopSpeak series, and it's authored by Devin McClarty. This analysis was published by D Publishing Group, owned by D Investment Enterprise. And our job really is to break down exactly what this McClarty framework found, how this subterranean pressure caused surface flooding. It gives you a whole new way to think about hazard analysis.
Yeah, and it's crucial right off the bat to understand this wasn't your typical flood. We need to distinguish groundwater flooding from, say, riverine flooding.
Okay, so normal floods, that's rivers, runoff, surface water going where it shouldn't.
Exactly. Surface water overwhelming things. Groundwater flooding, though, it's driven from below. It happens when the water table, that massive hidden body of water under the ground, gets completely full.
Saturated.
Totally saturated. And the pressure builds and builds until that water is literally forced upwards, breaking through the surface. It comes up from the ground.
Right. Okay, let's unpack this then, because understanding why this happened means looking at the ground itself, the geology of this specific part of Jamaica.
That's the foundation of the whole thing.
The McClarty analysis really zeroes in on why Manchester Parish is prone to this. The area sits on what's called the White Limestone Formation. Geologically, it's known as karst terrain.
And karst terrain is the absolute key here. Think of it less like solid rock and more like,
Right.
well, a giant, complex, natural plumbing system.
Okay.
Over millions of years, slightly acidic rainwater dissolves the limestone. It carves out this hidden network, underground tunnels, caves, fractures, pathways. It really is like a giant sponge, but made of rock.
A rock sponge. I like that. So the karst is the sponge.
What about the water itself?
That's the aquifer. It's the huge reservoir of water held within that porous karst structure. It's fantastic for storing water, usually. But as the LoopSpeak analysis points out, when you get extreme, sustained rainfall, like they did with Hurricane Melissa, that system gets overloaded. The porous rock absorbs huge amounts of water very fast. The aquifer fills up.
And it can't drain away quickly enough?
Precisely. It transitions from being a reservoir to being a pressurized system. And that pressure builds underground, setting the stage for a flood that doesn't flow down but literally rises up.
Okay, this is where the McClarty framework gets really fascinating. It lays out what they call the flood loop, a really clear four-step sequence, a cause-and-effect chain reaction.
Yeah, it's not random. It's a predictable mechanism based on the geology and the conditions. It maps out how you go from rain in the sky to water coming out of the ground.
So, step one, logically enough, heavy rainfall. Hurricane Melissa dumps a massive amount of rain, and because it's karst terrain, it doesn't just run off the surface. It pours straight down into that limestone network, filling up all those underground voids incredibly quickly.
Which leads directly to step two, aquifer search.
Right. That sudden, huge influx of water overfills the aquifer, the rock sponge. The water gets trapped. Pressure starts building. Immense subterranean pressure. That's the real engine driving this whole event.
I just want to pause on that. Subterranean pressure. We're talking about force building up under potentially miles of land surface.
It's enormous pressure.
Yeah.
And like any pressurized system, it seeks release. It seeks the path of least resistance.
Which in this case is up.
Exactly. Leading to step three, surface emergence. The pressure becomes so great, it physically forces the entire groundwater table upwards. It overcomes gravity, pushing water up through natural cracks, fissures, any weak point in the ground.
So people would literally see clear water bubbling up in roads, in their yards.
Absolutely, far from any river. The ground itself is essentially releasing the flood.
Wow. And the McClarty analysis points out this pressure doesn't just push up, it also pushes sideways through that underground network.
Yes, that's crucial. That leads to step four, lateral flow. The pressure forces the water to move horizontally through those underground conduits and tunnels.
And that's a different kind of threat, isn't it?
It is. It's a slower, migrating threat. The analysis specifically warned that this underground wave of water was moving toward lower-lying areas nearby. Communities like Porus and Harmons were put on alert.
So even after the rain stopped in Content, the danger was still moving unseen underground towards the next town.
Exactly, a slow-motion, subsurface flood wave.
Okay, so this sounds dramatic, but the LoopSpeak framework, the McClarty documents, they back this up with hard data, right? They call it the receipts. Verifiable evidence.
Oh, absolutely. And the numbers, verified by Jamaica's Water Resources Authority, the WRA, they are really quite staggering. Get this, the groundwater level increase, measured at roughly 100 meters.
100 meters, that's what, about 330 feet?
330 feet between late September and early November 2025. Think about that.
That's like adding the height of a 30-story building to the underground water level in just over a month. That's not normal rainfall accumulation, is it?
Not even close. It shows the sheer volume that Karst absorbed and the immense pressure buildup. And this pressure meant the surface flooding wasn't just a flash event. It was relentless.
They measured the rise rate.
They did. The floodwater rise rate was clocked at about 0.014 meters per hour in early November. It wasn't a sudden surge. It was this constant creeping rise. Water just kept coming up.
And it wasn't going away quickly either. The analysis mentioned official warnings.
Yeah, based on the volume of water estimated to be stored underground, they calculated it could take up to 2 months for the water levels to recede naturally.
2 months? That's not just an inconvenience. That's a major long-term disruption.
Completely. Roads and homes in Content and Williamsfield were inundated, impassable. Major traffic detours, huge infrastructure damage. It paralyzes daily life.
And there was a serious public health angle, too, wasn't there, with septic systems?
A critical one. When the water table rises that high, it floods underground septic tanks and leach fields. You get wastewater backing up, contamination spreading. It becomes a sanitation emergency very quickly.
So they had to bring in portable toilets.
Immediately. Essential to prevent disease outbreaks. And remember that lateral flow, step 4. Because they understood the mechanism, thanks to this kind of analysis.
They could warn Porus and Harmons.
Exactly. Formal warnings went out. Prepare for the water coming your way, underground. It shifted the response from just reacting where the water first appeared to proactively managing a known migrating hazard.
Which brings us perfectly to the solutions part of the LoopSpeak framework, moving from understanding the problem to actually doing something about it. The philosophy, as they put it, is design, not drama.
Right. A structured 3-phase plan. Not just cleaning up, but building resilience for the future, knowing this can happen again.
Okay, so phase A is the immediate response, days, maybe weeks. What does that involve beyond the obvious, like sandbags?
Well, some pumps, obviously. But the analysis highlights installing non-return valves on wastewater pipes.
Non-return valves, like a one-way door for plumbing.
Pretty much. Crucial when the ground is saturated and pressure is high. It prevents sewage from being forced back up into homes through toilets and drains as the external water level rises.
Ah, okay. So it stops the contamination inside the house. Simple, but vital.
Absolutely vital for protecting health and property during the event itself.
Hmm.
Then you move to phase B, near-term engineering. This is over weeks to months, focusing on stabilizing things.
Right. This sounds like bigger interventions. Digging ditches.
Temporary drainage ditches, yes, but also things like drilling specialized relief wells.
Relief wells, are those different from regular water wells?
Very different. They're not primarily for getting water out to use. They're designed specifically to tap into the pressurized aquifer and give that pressure a controlled escape route.
So you're essentially letting the steam out of the pressure cooker faster to lower the water table actively.
That's a good analogy. You're actively managing that huge 330-foot rise rather than just waiting for it to slowly seep away over months. Phase B also involves raising key roads, making them less vulnerable, and carefully clearing blocked sinkholes.
Why clear sinkholes? Aren't they part of the problem sometimes?
They can be entry points, but they're also natural drainage points for the Karst system. Under geological supervision, clearing blockages can help restore some of the natural, albeit slow, downward drainage.
Okay, makes sense. And that leads to the final phase, phase C, long-term resilience. This sounds like the really big picture stuff. Policy changes, permanent fixes.
This is where you embed the lessons learned. It's about fundamentally changing how you plan and build in these areas. The McClarty framework is clear. Restrict new building in known groundwater flood zones.
That's often politically tough, restricting development.
It is, but it's necessary if you want to avoid repeating the disaster. Phase C also includes retrofitting existing homes, maybe raising floor levels, definitely installing permanent backflow prevention valves, sealing entry points.
Future-proofing the existing buildings.
Exactly. And maybe the most forward-thinking piece mentioned in the analysis, setting up a permanent, real-time groundwater monitoring system along that content porous corridor.
So like an early warning system, but for groundwater levels and pressure.
Precisely. You're constantly tracking those subterranean levels. You get advance warning, days, maybe even weeks, before the water table gets critically high. Time to prepare, maybe even evacuate vulnerable spots before the water surfaces. It shifts you from reactive to proactive.
So wrapping this up, the core takeaway from this LoopSpeak analysis by Devin McClarty seems to be, in places built on this kind of karst geology, the ground itself is a key player in flooding. It's not just passive.
Geology is destiny. In these specific contexts, you can't ignore it. This analysis provided that scientific roadmap, showing how this new class of threat, this slow rising ground-up flood, actually works.
So what does this all mean, bigger picture?
Well, the source documents really position this Jamaican event as a crucial case study. For any town, any city built on similar limestone or porous geology anywhere in the world, the message is, stop just reacting. Start designing with the geology in mind.
Geologically informed foresight.
That's the goal, moving beyond the cycle of flood, damage, rebuild, repeat.
And the analysis makes it clear this is predictable, it is repeatable, given the geology and the right weather conditions, which leaves a pretty pointed question for you, the listener, wherever you are.
Yeah, how often are major planning decisions, where to build, what to build, how to manage infrastructure being made in your community without really, truly understanding and respecting the geology hidden just beneath the surface?
Because the conclusion from these sources is pretty stark. When the ground speaks, we design so Manchester doesn't drown twice.
It's a powerful reminder. Sometimes the biggest risks aren't the obvious ones on the surface, but the hidden systems operating under pressure deep underground.